This is a clip from Beyond Classified. You can access the entire episode now at rockfin.com/FKN+. Now let's stay in the conspiratorial realm here. There have been many in this community that believe that they are spraying nefarious substances, maybe chemicals, maybe drugs. There's some that believe that they catch some kind of disease called Morgellons, where they have like fibers that they've been spraying in the air. I've had a couple of guests talk about this stuff. We do know that in the past they've, CIA has like dosed the whole neighborhoods with LSD. So I mean, it wouldn't be that far out of the realm, but I don't know. What do you think about this?
Well, again, this is one of those where you really got to break it down into two categories. You've got what's going on in commercial aviation, your average everyday Delta, Southwest, all of that sort of thing, airlines. And for certain, beyond a shadow of a doubt, aviation fuel, and I mean, I could share a screen and show you this. All right, let me just bring this up real quick, and we'll share this. Shared. All right. As you can see here, metals detected in. Is that still full screen? I made this infographic to share with people, and this is just metals detected in jet exhaust. And what you see is sodium, magnesium, potassium, calcium, strontium, barium, scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper, zirconium, niobium, molybdenum, aluminum, silicon, tin, lead, sulfur, and selenium. For certain, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I have not only documents from the DTIC.mil, which is the military's document dump website, in addition to multiple scientific reports where they actually stuck a sniffer up to the back of a jet engine that they just fueled up with jet fuel. All of these metals are coming out in the exhaust. Shit. This is what's creating the clouds we see. So soot, carbon black dust, is filled with these metals. In the cirrus clouds, because after a contrail, chemtrail, plane fart, whatever you want to call it, after it fans out and becomes a cloud, that is a cirrus cloud, is an ice cloud. In fact, double detection on this one. Whenever multiple universities have done this study, and they've gone up, Germany's DLR, a group out of Sweden, they flew up into the clouds and they actually detected the metals, the cloud seeds, because we were talking about cloud seeding. Every cloud is made of seeds. It's made of three things: some speck of dust, water vapor, and ionizing radiation or static electricity, something to make the water stick to the dust. The dust could be mold, bacteria, or metals. There are many other types of cloud seeds. In fact, even trees make cloud seeds naturally. But in the case of commercial aviation, soot is filled with metals. All of the metals I just listed, they're already in the gas, no pipes necessary. And whenever they went up and flew in those clouds, they detected that 75% of the cloud seeds in those cirrus clouds were man-made metals. So you cannot argue with that. Now, to the flip side, with the military operations, have you ever heard of Agent Green?
I've heard you talk about it before.
Okay, so Agent Green was, they had this thing called Plan Columbia, and the idea was similar to Operation Ranch Hand that happened in Vietnam, where they were spraying all of the rainbow chemicals, Agent Orange, Agent Blue, there's many different agents. Most people have only heard of Agent Orange. But Agent Green specifically was to target coca leaves, the cocaine plants, down in Colombia in South America. And they were flying flights where they would spray out this fungicide, this man-made bacteria, F. oxysporum. It basically was a man-made fungus that would kill the cocaine crops. The problem is it then migrated all the way up through Mexico and was found in corn feed and in the brains of cows in Texas. These are the types of things that nobody wants to talk about. So I did an article on climateviewer.com called 5 Types of Real Chemtrails. And these are examples of, where the military, just basically for the betterment of society, the war on drugs, whatever their excuses are, they go and they spray stuff. Now, the Morgellons issue is a totally different issue. And I've dove into this one. But the idea that they're somehow spraying Morgellons from planes, I find to be highly laughable. And this is me literally going against friends and colleagues on this one because, Alana Freeland is a good friend. Been featured in 3 of her books. Clifford Carnicom, took her by the arm and said, come down to the house and look in your blood. Oh, you've got Morgellons in your blood. It comes from the planes. And I'm just going over here like, Alana, you don't have Morgellons. Honey, chill out. But even if you did, how can you prove that it came from a plane?
Right.
Because that's really the problem that I have with just about every topic I talk about. I like to say that my information is stuff you could take to the courthouse. You know what I mean? I don't go out, making a bunch of speculation unless I tell you straight up. It is my belief that I think that I'm speculating that. I'll let you know when I'm, going with my gut on something. Generally speaking, I'm going to tell you, here are the facts. The facts are this. And then beyond that, it is my guess that, that shit's probably happening. But with Morgellons, now, I'd been loath to talk about it for quite a while, and I was actually approached by a Morgellons survivor who actually, in my opinion, is somewhat of an expert on this subject. His name is Jeremy Murphy, and he took a lot of offense to a video I made and made a comment on my video, and I was like, well, holler at me, dude. Here's my email, here's my phone. We talked for a while, and, he said, no, it's related to Lyme disease. And I started thinking about that. And he said, it's actually in a lot of cases, what people see as fibers coming out of their skin is the same idea as you creating fingernails, except you're growing fingernails all over your body. It's the same type of material. Now, of course, you see these fancy videos where it actually looks like red string, blue string, and all this. My initial thought was, hey, whenever I flick my nylon towel in the bathroom and then the sun's coming through the window, I see plastic fibers all in the air. Morgellons is most likely, just like shrapnel slowly works its way out of a body. You can get like a piece of, you hear stories about people in the military getting a grenade and then years later the metal's like right below the skin surface and, it's worked its way to the surface, that sort of thing. So, you excrete things through your sebaceous glands, your sweat glands, and all of that. I thought, hey, maybe there's a possibility. We all eat, I think, a credit card worth of plastic per week.
Oh, shit.
This is the latest estimates. Especially if you own a microwave.
No.
If you're dumb enough to own a microwave today, you're eating a lot of plastic. So that was my initial thoughts on it. But Jeremy really kind of broke down the science behind it. He provided documentation to prove his case beyond a shadow of a doubt, in my opinion. And then that led me back to something I had learned years ago, that in 1991 on Plum Island, which is where it's biosafety lab, where they have all these infectious diseases for animals, and it's on Plum Island's right by New York. Hurricane Bob hit Plum Island. They lost power. And as a result, all containment was breached. And that place was filled with many different forms of Lyme disease, which then traveled to the ticks, which then made their way all the way down the East Coast and all the way around America at this point. And Morgellons has been associated with everything from self-manifestation to, people like, I've read every paper where they blame it on everything but Lyme's disease. But he provided some pretty concrete evidence. You combine that with the Plum Island containment leak that happened. I read this directly from the Department of Homeland Security's mouth, where they were doing an audit on Plum Island. And it was firsthand testimony from individuals who went to the site after they had breaches, and they said they entered the facility, all containment had been breached, and that mosquitoes were feasting on blood samples, petri dishes, and animal waste in the facility. So not only did the ticks get some, but mosquitoes were in there feeding on it. Whatever was in there, it spread everywhere. So these types of things are the things that creep me out. Not the idea that the government spraying Morgellons. Now, that's not to say that the government isn't nefarious as hell.
Yeah.
The U.S. Army Chemical Corps sprayed zinc cadmium sulfide, which is a radioactive element, from coast to coast in what was called the Manhattan-Rochester Coalition, or a spinoff of the Manhattan Project, where they wanted to study aerosol behavior of clouds in cities. And they wanted to simulate a nuclear attack and the fallout that would occur with a less radioactive material. And of course, the military, the U.S. Army Chemical Corps says, we didn't hurt anybody, but there are literally dozens of firsthand accounts from people who were alive and in the areas and permanently physically harmed from these sprayings. They did it, in downtown St. Louis in a predominantly black neighborhood. I have the full listing. It's all over the country, but one of their projects was called Operation LAC, LAC, or Large Area Coverage, where they took I think it was a C-117 boxcar plane, and they flew it from California all the way to, Virginia. And they just sprayed zinc cadmium sulfide out of the back of a plane. Now, here's my problem with chemtrails, the chemtrail theorists. Mm-hmm. If the government is doing this today, I just want you to let this sink in. They sprayed zinc cadmium sulfide from coast to coast in 1958, and we did not find out about this till 2012. Between 2012 and 2017. So like 60 freaking years later, we found out.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, if the government, the military is involved in something like this, top secret, and especially in an age where all the journalists on the news are bought and paid for and usually have a CIA operator in the same building, where everything is coordinated news, any dissent is immediately shut down, any leak is immediately. I mean, there were literally people on TV going, it's illegal for you to look at the WikiLeaks dump, but we're journalists, so we're allowed to look at it. That's absolute bullshit. So we live in that time, and that makes it so much harder. I can't imagine the reporter, Jack Anderson, who saw the note on Lyndon Johnson's desk about the weather warfare going on in Vietnam, Operation Popeye, who then reported it in the Pentagon papers that was then published in the New York Times. That could never happen today, because that disclosure led to the Russians and the United States going to the United Nations and signing a weather warfare ban in 1978. The problem is there's no way to catch anybody doing it. So we're in a situation where even though weather warfare is illegal, there's no way to catch anybody doing it. I've proposed some, add-ons to the legislation, as well as taking it to a country by country and even a state by state level, the Environmental Modification Accountability Act, to make the Environmental Modification Convention, NMOD, have some teeth. But until that happens, we cannot prove when the military is doing weather warfare. We certainly won't be able to prove they're, spraying X chemical, or hell, they may be spraying more gallons, and I might be an ass. Don't trust me. But the thing is, we can't ever verify any of this stuff. Even the companies that are doing cloud seeding, if they end up screwing with the weather and that causes a tornado or a flood or basketball size hail to, you can't even prove when they did it and sue them, because even in the Weather Modification Reporting Act of 1972, it's just two forms of sheets of paper you fill out and you send to NOAA, and it's not specific. It's they literally write on there, we will be operating from October through March. Well, what day? At what time? October through March. I need to know that this cloud seeding generator was on at 2:45 p.m. on this day and operated for this many hours, so that I can then look at the weather radar and say, okay, well, they messed with this storm right here, and then over here, 2 states away, tornadoes came out of that storm, causing X million dollars of damage. By the way, guys, they screwed with that storm over there. You should be able to sue them for damages. I think that would bring the weather modification industry to a grinding halt. But that's my hope for the future, and one day we may get there. The problem is right now there's no accountability, there's no transparency, and that's why there is so much conspiracy with whenever there is a lack of information, there are plenty of people willing to fill that vacuum with speculation. I don't blame them. I don't trust the government any further than I can throw them, which is not very far, because there are a lot of them and they're heavy.
Yeah. The encouraging thing is the time we're in and the mistakes they've made, people are starting to see a lot of this corruption and dirty side of the government. So that's the only encouraging thing right there.
Yeah.
Now I want to get your take on this. For the longest time, it seems like the sun has been changing colors. I don't know if it's just a misremembrance on my part, but it seems I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and I remember the sun being like orange or yellow when I was a kid, and now it looks like a fluorescent white light bulb. Is this something in our atmosphere that is changing this, or is it the sun change? What are your thoughts on this?